There's something very powerful about the image of light. From ancient times, it has symbolized knowledge, hope, love. It has been a sign of the divine, the eternal light, the inner light, and the light of the world. Light is a theme of festivals celebrated at this time of year when days are shortest and nights are longest. By affirming that we live by the light of hope, we banish the power of the darkness that surrounds us. Thank you for joining us for the online worship service for December 13th, 2020. We will be looking at a few timeless stories of hope that offer us light in these dark times. This is a part of exploring our worship and covenant group theme for this month, Ideas About God. Thank you for being with us today.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I am Rona Collins, your worship associate for today's service. We gather together with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you're joining us today for the first time or you've been a member or a friend for many years, we are glad you are here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, whatever your background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. Now, as Sal Vasta comes forward, let us all say together from our homes the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. And I invite you to join with me as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth, its sacrament, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one with another.
And as we have done since last March, we pause at the beginning of every service for a time of silence. There's so much going on in our world today and in our lives. So we want to pause in this silence to, first of all, give a shout out of appreciation and loving support to all the parents and teachers and postal workers and essential workers, and especially all the medical workers who are working tirelessly to adapt to these situations and often at risk to their own health and the health of their families. So we hold them up and lift them up with loving support. We also want to pause and hold in our hearts those families who are struggling to make ends meet, which is always hard. It's especially hard during these holidays. And in addition to everyone struggling from the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, let us pause to lift up and hold with love all of those families who are struggling with symptoms of COVID, and to those who are grieving the loss either of loved ones during this holiday due to distance or even to death. So it's a lot to hold in our hearts. It's overwhelming at times. It's important for us to come together as a community and join our hearts together in this silence to recognize all of them and ourselves. Please join me in the silence. Thank you. While our celebrations of Christmas are widely influenced by ancient human rituals that mark the dark time of the year and the winter solstice, Hanukkah, with its ritual of candle lighting, is not a midwinter holiday. Instead, Hanukkah, which is also known as the Jewish Feast of Dedication, commemorates a miracle in the life of the rededication of the Great Temple in Jerusalem, to which all Israelites turn for support in the practice of their faith. During the Maccabean revolt, miraculously, a supply of oil to use in the temple, which should have just lasted one day, actually lasted for all the 8 days in which it was needed to rededicate the temple. Hanukkah is an important remembrance of an undying faith against great odds and oppression. The menorah used for Hanukkah is a candle holder which has 8 spaces for the candles to be lit on the succeeding nights of Hanukkah. Today, Rona will be lighting 4 candles. The shape of the menorah is sometimes compared to the ancient tree of life, but in Rona's beautiful menorah, there are children and parents of different ages gathered together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlich ner shel Chanukah. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who blesses us with your teaching, instructing us to kindle the lights of Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim hahem, ba'azman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who performed wondrous deeds for our ancestors in days of old at this season.
These words of meditation and prayer are by the Unitarian Universalist M. Susan Milner. We pause this hour to remember those whom we have lost, those whom we fear losing, those from whom we are separated, those to whom we would extend a helping hand, a caring heart, the will to live. We pause this hour also to hope for life and good living, for love and kind words, for reconciliation, for the support of family, friends, and community, for meaning in our struggle for wholeness. May our memories and hope renew us for the days and nights to come. In today's message, we will look at a few timeless stories of hope that offer us light in these times of darkness. We begin with the story of Hanukkah, which is at its heart a celebration of freedom from oppression. The original story takes place at the time of the rededication of the Great Temple in Jerusalem during the Maccabean revolt in the 2nd century BCE. The temple was a place where the ancient Israelites looked for the support of their faith. The events of the Hanukkah story climax at the celebration when it's discovered that the usual ceremonial oil was nowhere to be found, and the only consecrated oil they had was enough for only one day. But it actually lasted the full 8 days needed to press more oil. The Jews celebrated the miracle joyfully with a feast of 8 days that we know as Hanukkah. An unlikely occurrence transpired, and it was marked with a timeless story of perseverance in claiming the rituals of one's faith. We continue to remember the ancient event with the lighting of candles each night of Hanukkah, along with an expression of gratitude to the Creator for the wonders of our world. We also know about an ancient story of a baby boy who was born to young, unwed parents in a little town called Bethlehem. What better symbol is there for the light of hope than the child new and fresh, open to the future, able to make choices that change the course of history. And we know that Jesus' simple message of love indeed rocked the whole world. He challenged the status quo, not only of our human societies, but the status quo of the human heart that all too easily focuses on personal self-interest, rather than the ways in which we are inexplicably tied to each other's destinies. We know that the beautiful, timeless story arose from an unlikely place and an unlikely time to reveal a stunning addition to the world's history of human wisdom and compassion. A small town, not even a place at the inn, but rather a humble stable. A child is born into this world who brings a vision of great love to transform our human lives. But let's not forget that the beauty of timeless stories as a light in the darkness is that they're always being created. So let's look at two more holiday stories that have a more contemporary flair, shall we? There is the ever popular story of Ebenezer Scrooge from the classic novel by Charles Dickens, for instance. A Christmas Carol, which became Dickens's most famous novel, told the story of an unlikely personal transformation in the life of a most predictable man, Ebenezer Scrooge. But Dickens's A Christmas Carol also brought into popular culture much of what we consider traditional today in our celebration of Christmas. An occasion to give to those less fortunate, to gather with family and friends round laden dinner tables and Christmas trees filled with lights, decorations, and toys. But something many people do not realize is that Dickens's A Christmas Carol was also one of the most representative novels of his Unitarian beliefs. Although Dickens was born and baptized into the Anglican Church, he turned to Unitarianism in his 30s. His letters, speeches, and novels all show that what he hated about the Anglican Church. Pardon me. He wrote this to a friend. The church's hand is at its own throat because of the doctrinal wranglings of the various parties. Here more popery, there more Methodism, many forms of consignment to eternal damnation. These things cannot last, he proclaimed. Dickens found some of his greatest personal allies in British Unitarians, but when he came to America in 1842, he chronicled his disillusionment with our country, especially its practice of slavery. But Dickens praised his visit to Boston, where he met Ralph Waldo Emerson and William Ellery Channing. A scholar writing about his life wrote that his interest in Unitarianism was virtually the only enthusiasm he managed to bring back with him undamaged at the end of the trip to America. Upon returning home to England, Dickens worked tirelessly for a wide range of charitable causes, raising funds for soup kitchens, immigration schemes, housing associations, prison reform, and much more. He believed that through the writing of his fiction, he could help to promote moral solutions to society's ills. He wrote in a letter, disgusted with our established church, I have carried into effect an old idea of mine and joined the Unitarians who would do something for human improvement if they could, and who practice charity and toleration. Without mentioning Jesus once in his A Christmas Carol, Dickens documented the possibility of human conversion, not necessarily based on a specific religious experience, but rather a personal transformation that leads one to help others. Dickens helps us to see our own Scrooge-like nature of bitter cynicism and complacency, and to challenge that with the beauty of human connection and compassion. For Dickens, the true meaning of Christmas lay in our inexplicable ties with one another. And so we have this other timeless story for the season, A Season of Darkness. And so we come to our final story today, another contemporary one, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is a story of how even the stingiest and most cynical of hearts still has room to grow. Do you remember how the Grinch has stolen all the Christmas presents in Whoville? He rides his malevolent sleigh up to Mount Crumpet so that he can throw all the gifts away that he's just stolen. Just before he's about to dump the presents, the Grinch pauses to enjoy the anticipated weeping he has caused the Whos down in Whoville. But alas, he hears singing instead. His evil plan is foiled, and something strange and unlikely then takes place. Dr. Seuss tells us that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. This timeless story of hope as a light in the darkness shows us all that as we go about the busyness of this holiday season, at any unexpected moment, an event can occur that can pull us out of our deepest of bad moods and can open our hearts, even for just a moment, to the surprise of joy and love. May it be so for us, one and all.
As Sal Vasta extinguishes the flame, let us say together from our homes the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. The purpose of this church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We hope you will consider making an offering after today's service through our webpage, uushenandoah.org, which allows us to exercise that generosity of spirit for this self-supporting church and its many ministries, which continue while we are not able to be physically together. We invite you to join our church community at noon at our virtual post-service gathering for joys and concerns, followed by our coffee hour conversations in smaller breakout groups. The Zoom link is found in your UUCSV email. Thank you for joining us today.
We light our lights this season to remind us that the darkness, however powerful it may be at times, does not overcome us. There always remains a spark of hope within our hearts that can be fanned into love and even joy. There always remains a spark of hope within humanity that can be fanned into a passion for peace. We need a spark of love to keep, especially during these dark times. So let's keep it burning brightly. May the divine spark of love and hope within each of us become a beacon of love and light that we carry in the world, in our everyday lives. Thank you for joining us today. Stay safe, stay strong, and we will see you next time.